a general Ayurveda perspective, I would say, is somebody healthy or in disease? Very often the answer would be to tell everybody is in different stages of disease evolution. Would that make sense? Some things are not hidden, it's not seen, so there are things which are going on, and suddenly when it becomes manifest, we say there is an illness, but actually we are all sitting. If you look at a cardiac patient, for 30 years he builds up atherosclerosis, and at 45 or 50 he has high blood pressure, he has to go for a stent. He doesn't realize it is not the result of 2 years of bad behavior, it is the result of 30 years of bad behavior. So what is that concept there? So therefore this is an important point here, that when I look at intrinsic health potential, which is what everybody is going after, the genes, does the fact that I have some genes mean that I have got to get it? All of you are very educated, you are aware that whether it's a prostate, going and trying to remove the prostate based on genetic criteria, or Angelina Jolie now who was removed based on certain things, the genetic profiling, barring a few very, very definitive things. Of course, prostate is controversial. They have told not to remove the prostate based on the genetic profiling or the scans which are done. But barring that, genetic propensity does not mean genetic sure, that it is a 100% confirmed thing that I will get the disease. Because all of us have various genes which can trigger off. So the latest theory of cancer itself would be that I have the genes, if I trigger off that thing, cancer comes. It's not that it is some external thing alone which is coming. What we say is there is certain genetic potential, and that potential with certain health behaviors. We call it health behavior because essentially it is diet and lifestyle. So what is diet and lifestyle is not just about whether I go to play golf or whether I go to the yachting club, or not just that. It is the way I live my life. Lifestyle is not, as we told some of the what the lifestyle magazines would believe. It's just about how do I live my life from morning when I wake up to when I go to sleep, that whole cycle. And this personal health behavior is not just like that. It is which behavior, at which place, at which geography, at which time. And time itself is a very widely, is a very wide definition. As you'll see, time is time of day, time of digestion, time of season, and time of life. The same behavior at the age of 20 and the age of 40 and the age of 60 has totally different impact on health. The same behavior at 9 o'clock in the morning, 6 o'clock in the morning, 9, 12 and evening 8 o'clock has completely different implications. And the same behavior that I do in Delhi, then I do it here and I do it in Netherlands, has completely different implications on me. So to say that drinking coffee is good for me, drinking coffee is bad for me, eating watermelon is good for me, bad for me, eating rice, eating sweets, there's no, in Ayurveda, there's nothing which is perfectly good or perfectly bad. If you take that, everything is good for somebody at some place at some time, and everything is also bad for somebody at some place at some time. There's nothing like a perfectly good or perfectly bad substance. So why I bring this up, the personal health behavior at a particular place at a particular time, and with a particular medical history. I have a medical history, I do a behavior. That could have a different impact on me than somebody who does not have that medical history. How do I take all these things together? And at a different stage of disease evolution. So I already have a certain stage of disease evolution in my body. I do a particular behavior, what it does to me is very different from somebody at a different stage of disease evolution. Incidentally, Ayurveda has got 6 stages of disease evolution. What we call in modern medicine as disease, what we catch, is only the 5th and the 6th stage, when these symptoms are manifesting. But in Ayurveda, you can catch those symptoms earlier by picking up what are the symptoms of, what are the signs and symptoms of imbalance as manifested in the body at the physical, the mental and the spiritual level. You can actually find out, you can actually pick up and say this person is deviated based on this, and this could be done in a very, very thorough protocol based way. So where I am coming in is, can I then therefore look at multi-factors contributing to multi-problems? And so just to give you an idea, this is a simple thing of oily skin can come from so many things coming together. How they interact with each other, that is what leads to something as simple as oily skin. How I would treat oily skin is probably do something symptomatic locally. But if I want to correct deep-rooted acne without acne scars, without steroids, without surgery, I may have to understand the mechanism by which oily skin is coming. Okay? or I mean, this is the kind of Sanskrit verse which goes to show how a skin disease may come, what type of behaviors in what place, what this thing. So the concept of good health in Ayurveda is everything about a concept called homeostasis. Why we bring this is that the nature of good health, the nature of immunity, when you talk about immunity itself, a person has got good immunity if his body is able to adjust to a changing environment. Good health is the ability to adapt to a new environment. And the changing environment is that from an Ayurveda perspective, you'll find it changes with place, it changes with season, it changes with time of day. The body is constantly exposed to different nature, elements in the nature. A healthy body is able to nicely keep adjusting to that. So the word homeostasis is very beautiful. I think it's a Greek word which is there, but Ayurveda had it earlier, as a concept. So it's balance within and balance with a changing external environment. So it's both two. When the environment changes, I need to keep in balance and also adapt to the changing environment. So Ayurveda gives a paradigm in which this can be achieved at a personalized level, not a generalized level. So we then come to a concept of good health, and when you want to tell about good health, rather than talking in terms of vital parameters and telling my cholesterol or my BP or my pulse, those are definitely important to be considered. But at a functional level, Ayurveda has got a functional view of health. What are the symptoms of good health? Is my sleep good? Is my appetite good? How do I determine how my metabolism is? Okay, beyond going and doing some tests for chemicals, what is the nature of good metabolism? Good appetite, good excretion, both motion, solid based and liquid based. What is the nature of good excretion? So I have good health as good clear excretion at the motion and the urine level. Clear senses. Are my five senses completely alert? If I can't talk about being, having my parameters under control if I'm not, my eyes, ears, all the senses, five senses are not alert. And good health means that I am cheerful, I am positive, I am optimistic. In India, the 90% of the investment from the private sector, which is doing most of the work, goes into the red circle there, which is acute and emergency care. There is very little services in secondary prevention and tertiary prevention. But where is the real demand? In India, by 2020, they say 2 out of 3 people will die because of a chronic disease, not due to an acute or emergency disease. They know that they're going towards death and they can do nothing about it because the system is not working. Right? In the US, they say, from the medical insurance data, that 80% of the Medicare expense, the system is called Medicare, right?
Yeah, Medicare.
Yeah, Medicare, US Medicare system, 80% is contributed by people with 5 or more chronic diseases. That's the way that they have. In Japan, 80% of the people, the 80% of the bill goes to chronic disease care, not for acute emergency care. But where is the investment going? It's completely into acute emergency care. So why is it that chronic diseases are so significant? It's a question that nobody asks. If all of current knowledge, health and systems and knowledge work so beautifully, we should have no chronic disease because we are curing the disease. But we are not curing. So the reason we are not curing the disease is because mostly, if you look at almost any condition, we treat the symptom today, not the root cause. Nobody questions that. And the evidence that we see, double-blind randomized clinical trials, is to what extent the symptom has gone or not gone. We don't look at how many times the same person comes back for the same condition. I do a total knee replacement. What is happening after 3 years, 5 years? I do a cataract surgery. What happens to the eyes after 3 years, 5 years? I do, I do sinusitis surgery. Very clearly the doctor tells when doing the first time, let me tell you, you'll have to come back a couple more times. Because I can't guarantee that you won't get it back. Then what's the point in doing a health intervention which cannot prevent it from coming back? Agreed that I have a fracture, I want to correct it. I have to correct the fracture. So wherever I have an acute problem, I have a liver that has been so spoiled that I have to do finally only a transplant, agreed modern medicine can do a role. But how to prevent from the liver from getting to a point where it needs a transplant, we are probably struggling. So most of the things, whether you take primary hypertension, which is 95% of the people have primary hypertension, why is it that we have so many people with primary hypertension? Can we correct it at the root cause? What is the root cause prevention for a primary health. So then we go to tertiary prevention, stroke rehabilitation. Today the model, let me tell you, again from an insurance angle and from a hospital angle, in India the model is to keep the length of stay, average length of stay at very, very small stay, 3 to 5 days. So the hospital management is incentivized to minimize the average length of stay. I don't know how it is in Netherlands. Same. And to ensure that the revenue per day is maximized. So the hospital, the way I'm measuring my hospital, this thing is maximize my revenue for a minimum stay. But what do people actually want? The patient wants longer care, maybe for the same cost. But the model, the business model does not enable that to be done. The business model does not permit a long-term care, which is what a lot of patients want. So I have a stroke. After the third day in the ICU, the hospital has made the money it has got to do, because it's put him into the ICU, put all the medicines in. After that, step down coming out, there's only physiotherapy to be done, and he occupies an expensive bed. So I move him out, telling you, please come on an OP basis, but actually he needs the care. So this is the problem. You take cancer rehabilitation. What do I do after the chemotherapy and the radiation therapy? How do I take care of the larger needs of the patient? Is there a model which can take? That's tertiary prevention. And what I want to present here is that Ayurveda can do fantastic work in secondary prevention. Preventing a chronic disease from becoming acute and emergency. Preventing an asthma from repeating, asthma from getting to an acute and emergency thing. Arthritis is the beginning. How do you prevent arthritis from becoming complete deformities of the joints? How do you get it at an early stage? And we can show you enough cases. And this is not some anecdotal point. These are case after case that you can come look at our records and assure for yourself these outcomes are coming. You can talk to the patients and this again. If the treatment stage is pre-acute, acute, emergency and post-acute, if you take that as 4 stages, Ayurveda would be able to do everything excepting the emergency. That is the pre-acute, acute and post-acute, post-emergency. And for all the mainstream conditions, it is not that you're taking 1 or 2 conditions. Anything which is a systemic disease, which is created by the body, within the body due to inappropriate behavior, can be corrected through Ayurveda. So it's not picking and choosing, but all mainstream medical conditions at the secondary prevention level, Ayurveda can work. What we call autoimmune conditions, which we don't have an answer, believe me, many of those autoimmune conditions, when presented to Ayurveda, have a solution. Because the paradigm, as we'll understand the Ayurveda principles, we'll be coming to that. So what is the disease cycle? How does Ayurveda play? If the disease is a chronic, complicated case, then you have diet, lifestyle, medicine and treatment, therapy. Why I bring this up, it's never that you just give medicine or you just give treatment. It's always diet, lifestyle, medicine, treatment. Or diet, lifestyle, medicine, or diet, lifestyle. So diet, lifestyle is integral to the whole thing, and it's a very, very mature system of dietetics. So it's not just telling about the food pyramid and telling how much of protein, what is the calorie count to be given, and how much of protein and fat and this thing, nutrition, and give some dietary supplements or something. It's an extremely rich way to look at how to personalize diet based on the place, based on the disease, based on the digestive capability, how to promote digestion. Food is medicine in complete form is done through Ayurveda. Because just by correcting some things, the entire health profile of the person can be changed. What comes through as a disease. So what I want to bring here, it's an integrated approach, which is what we call chikitsa. That's a Sanskrit word for health management. The totality of personalized, every patient we'll find is we're not treating a disease, we're treating a person who has manifested some symptoms. So that is how that personalization comes in, as you know. I began by talking about the universal energy in all of us. One of the foundational principles is that we come from nature. Everything that exists comes from nature. And we exist here because over millennia, we have learned to exist in balance with nature. So that nature, whatever happens in nature happens in my body, whatever happens in my body happens in nature. So whether you look at the summer, winter, monsoon and seasons, the life cycle, if you look at whether I'm a mosquito, I'm a dog, a monkey or I'm a human being, the laws of nature work exactly the same. Once we understand that, then it gives us a little bit more humility in looking at the problems and also recognizing the patterns of nature. Then the fact that, as in many ancient civilizations, the 5 basic elements are supposed to be there. The Greeks told, the Indians told, the Chinese later have taken it from India, that you have air, ether, water, earth and fire, the 5 primordial elements. What the Indians at some point did was to recognize that these 5 basic elements tend to move together in some pattern. So they said air and ether combine to form something called Vata, Vayu or Vata, and water and earth combine to form what is called Kabha, and the fire and water combine to form what is called Pitta. Okay, so these 3 doshas, 3 is tree, and doshas are the Vata, Pitta, Kabha. That's one of the foundational blocks. Now, there is a concept of Prakriti. What this concept of Prakriti is, in those days when there was no genetic mapping and this and that, what they told, the moment a person is conceived in his or her mother's womb, at the moment of that fertilization, the Prakriti or the inherent constitution of the person is defined, whether it be tall, thin, fat, fair, will I have, all my physical, what you would call the phenotype is defined, automatically in terms of the physical, mental, spiritual characteristics of the person at the moment of conception. Now, once I recognize this is my inherent constitution, there's nothing good or bad. It's about realizing this is my inherent constitution so that I conduct my life in accordance with my inherent constitution and ensure with the place I live. So I go to Netherlands. I need to keep in mind this is my constitution. I am in Netherlands. How do I readjust? That knowledge of how to do that is what Ayurveda is. So knowing my Prakriti and which is my inherent nature or constitution. Of course, it's a very philosophical, big concept one can talk about, but at a basic level that is there. And the concept of dynamic balance. Good health is the ability to maintain dynamic balance. And Vikriti is the deviation of my constitution. So due to inappropriate diet and lifestyle, I will deviate my body from my natural state. That's when I have disease. So what Ayurveda picks up at very early stages, it's able to pick up, yes, I can see these deviations happening in the body. These things are, that's how an Ayurveda doctor almost like magically, as many good modern doctors also, are able to see the person and say, I can see these signs and symptoms and make out these are the imbalances happening in the body. But Ayurveda has got a very mature language for all of that, or conceptual framework for that. And it looks at it at the physical, mental, spiritual axis. All of this. And why this is important? Ayurveda is not just talking about physical, mental, spiritual theoretically. It figures out what you do at the physical level, what impact it has on the mind, and what it has on your spiritual position vis-a-vis life, or your mental position that you take. Your mental status, what does it do to the body? Ayurveda clearly establishes that connection. So, through the Vata, Pitta, Kabha, at the physical, mental, and the spiritual level, so you are able to capture a person far beyond a limited thing to say, here is my bone, there's a bone fracture or bone pain. How do I take this whole thing and relate it to the physical, mental, spiritual axis? And incidentally, the Prakriti constitution, everybody in the world can be broadly classified into 7 constitutional types, broadly. So that helps doctors to immediately say when the person comes in, oh, he is Vata, Pitta. So the 7 types are Vata, Pitta, Kabha, the 3. Then you get, if you take the 3, then Vata, Pitta, Kabha and Vata, Kabha. So another 3 and then Vata, Pitta, Kabha. So it is like 1 at a time, then 2 at a time, then all 3 together. So these are the 7 broad types. And it will be very interesting if you were to fill up a form for you to know which constitution you belong to. And it is the physical, the mental and the spiritual level. And the concepts of Nidana is the underlying root cause, which is in terms of the diet and lifestyle, which I do. What is that inappropriate behavior? Ayurveda has a concept of figuring out what is that wrong behavior which is leading to the disease. Dinacharya, Ritucharya. This is about a daily routine which keeps you healthy, cleansing routine. A Ritucharya is a seasonal cleansing routine. How do you with the seasons keep your body changing. So winter is approaching. What do I do before winter comes so that I don't have the problems, right? And yeah. So I rushed through this. I told earlier about the three doshas. There is the Pitta, Kapha, and Vata as it comes. Okay, there are three combinations, and the concept of macrocosm and microcosm. Why I bring this up? Everything which is there in the universe comes from these elements as how we take it. So we are able to therefore correlate. Why this is important? When I give a medicine, the medicine also comes from the same microcosm which the macrocosm is made of. So when I have a deficiency of one of these things in my body or an excess of something in my body, the line of treatment is to give that balancing input. Okay, which is what it is coming from. And so there are multiple dimensions of the three doshas. I don't want to go fully into this. There is a physical level. There is a, let's put it like this, at the conceptual level, if you take Vata, Vata is everything that functions in the body. Okay, let me go tell Kapha first. Kapha is everything which is structural in the body. So I'm using a different terminology. Kapha is everything which is structural. You can touch, feel anything in the body, internal organs, outside, hair, nails, everything is Kapha. Okay, Vata is the functioning of the body. So from a system angle, if I move my finger, this is because Vata is functioning well. I'm not telling that there's a nerve impulse coming and going there, but that's because Vata functions. If I have loose motion, Vata in this part of the body is got a problem. If my heart valve does not function, there is a Vayu or a Vata, Vyana Vata, which is there in the heart, which is responsible for functioning of this region, that is not working in order. So if you correct Vyana Vayu, wherever Vyana Vayu is flowing, you're able to correct that. If I look at any problem in this region, right from you take benign prostate hypertrophy, incontinence, low backache, okay, acute constipation, any of the problems which come here, you can take many of the urinary problems, the excretionary problems, whatever, all that would be with one Vayu. So the functioning thing. The third thing is metabolism or transformation. So Pitta is about the transformative force. So you have structure, function and transformation. That way. At the mental level, there is the... So Vata is everything about change and Kapha is everything about steadiness, both at the body level. So if you take a person who is overall, big built, if you want to take it, and not bony in structure, and big built who will, walk in a slow way and talks very deeply and slowly, he's a high Kapha if you want to take. The other alternative extreme is a very bony structure person who is walking very fast, talking very fast. In between is the thing. I'm just reducing it to this. But the same thing at the emotional, mental level. Somebody who gets angry very fast, gets cool very fast, is a high Vata. Gets emotional, but the Kapha person on the other hand will not get angry at all. It will take a long time to get angry. But once he gets angry, he will take a machine gun and shoot the entire group of people. So it's like inertia is very high. So the mental constitution, this becomes important because you're determining that based on your understanding of the mind and the body and spiritually. So you don't have time, so I'll just rush through it. And the cycle of life, time of day, I'll just show it to you. Depending on the time of day, the Vata, Pitta and Kapha are changing. So you'll find that a pain in the body which comes in the morning and a pain which comes in the evening has completely different. That itself immediately tells us what is the root cause, what is the possible deviation in the body. Whereas if I'm taking pain, I may just be noting that pain is coming, but in modern medicine to interpret that correlation as to why at a particular time, in a particular season. I'll give an example. In February, all over the US, you have influenza. The number of millions of doses of flu vaccine that is sold there. Has anybody ever asked, why are so many million people getting flu across the country? Ayurveda has got an answer. But somebody's got to listen to Ayurveda and come out with a program which is preventive. And probably these 65 million doses of flu vaccine which is actually spent there could be avoided in a year. Because what it is doing, it's a response of the body to the imbalances created in the previous season. When I get into spring, when I'm getting post-winter into that particular season, that's when the imbalances accumulated in the previous season are coming through. If I'm aware of what to do during the winter season, when the other season comes, that will not come. Ayurveda will give a way to do that. Simple medicines. So this cycle of nature is operating through seasons, through time of day, how the Vata, Pitta, Kapha is going up and down. All this is clearly told, connected with the time of day, time of digestion. This is also important, the different tastes. There are 6 tastes. So what I take it for granted, this is salty, spicy or pungent or the sweet. This is one of the most important slides for an Ayurveda doctor. Because the food I take has got different impact on my body. Not just at the level of protein and fat and vitamins and all that. Or carbohydrates. It's got a more foundational thing in terms of telling my body is made up of this constitution. I'm giving more of this and this. So what tends to happen is, I have already got aggravated some set of things, let's say, in my body. I add more of that to that. So I am, let's say, already a Vata person, and I eat more of Vata food, and I am already in a place where it is cold weather and the Vata is very high. So I add everything which is Vata, Vata, Vata on top, and then I have a Vata problem. So if I know this is my constitution, I am in a Vata place, I should avoid that Vata type of food and do things to automatically in my food to just correct it, and I will not have disease. But I don't have that understanding because I think only in terms of some, nutritional parameters. There is a fundamental thing. So this helps us to know what to do in which season or time of day, etc. So then it becomes complicated, right? How to get these doshas and what you call gunas and rasas, everything together for one person. Now, how do you come up? But Ayurveda actually gives you a methodology to approach all this together and come up with a personalized manner. That's the beauty. So if you really see systems thinking, which is cutting edge modern management thinking, Ayurveda is systems thinking applied to health. So how we do it as a science, we capture the physical, the personal profile comprehensively, we look at the past and current health influencing factors very systematically, clinical examination is there, and the whole approach it's a very simple point. We look at identifying the nature of imbalance in the person, okay, and try to reverse that imbalance. The approach is not to say this medicine is going and treating this disease. The approach is to say you remove the impediments or the blocks to the body healing itself. Our whole idea is that the body is intelligent. If the body was not intelligent, we would not be where we are. From one zygote, one fertilization, we all stand here in this form with intelligence, with body. Everything is so clear. The body is such a complex device, and to imagine that one medicine will go and fix this problem or that problem is being very foolish. So instead of that, what we do, we remove the impediments, and the body is healing many of these conditions. And believe me, the most complex autoimmune conditions get corrected with just the basic principle. We are also used to a drug of choice. So people are used to telling, for this condition, what is the medicine? For this condition, what is the medicine? But in Ayurveda, we clearly distinguish between the presenting complaint and the root cause. So the root cause, actually we've seen some of the case papers, is that we call it the etiopathogenesis. So Ayurveda doctor actually has to figure out what is the etiology and the pathogenesis. And this word is called Roga Samprapti. So the Roga Samprapti determines what is the root cause and by which pathway it became the disease as it is manifested. So if I understand the Roga Samprapti and treat that underlying root cause and the pathway by which it is manifested, then I get 100% results. When I treat it at purely the symptom level, then I may not get the correct results. The important point I want to state here, what you would do in modern medicine, everything is done in Ayurveda too. From the olden times. So at Ayurveda, we don't do anything new. We do everything that it was supposed to have been done. So this is the presenting complaint, history of present illness, history of past illness, family medical history. This part, and this is all the Sanskrit words here, telling this is how it should have been done. And then of course, keeping deference to the fact that modern approaches would say what are the existing medication that you're taking, dietary supplements you take. Then the diet and lifestyle. For women's health, you can see the details of how we capture even a gynecologist would not so systematically capture. We do it completely. Then we do a clinical examination, the vital parameters. We do both the modern parameters are taken and we do the Ayurveda parameters. So in one clinical examination, we pick up both the Ayurveda and the modern parameters, and then we get to what is called the development of the diagnosis. So we look at what is the stage of the disease, what is the nature of the disease, how it is coming, and this is an important diagram here. This is called the etiopathogenesis of this particular thing. So the doctor is actually writing what is the route by which the disease is manifested. So unless he draws this diagram, he or she, you're not getting into the formal diagnosis. And then there's a differential diagnosis. I may do a test dose, I may do some lab tests for confirmatory. Why I've shown this to you is that in line with modern developments which are happening, we are appropriately mixing modern things as coming in. We use Ayurveda principles completely, but there's no problem in doing a blood report or doing a scan or other things. That's how the integration happens appropriately. We don't treat using modern medicine. We don't give modern prescriptions. But we use the benefits of the wisdom of modern medicine where it is relevant. Okay? So you come to the diagnosis. Now a very important point. This diagnosis is in this patient. So medical management is still not reached. You say this disease in this patient, and here we capture the risk factors, and here we say when you bring the disease and the patient together in an integrated form, you may have a strong disease in a weak patient. You may have a weak disease in a strong patient. How to determine the strength of the patient? There is this scale, this thing is telling you how to determine. So that the medical management is prescribed keeping in mind the nature of the patient. And that's a structured thing, part of Ayurveda. So we call it Rogi Bala and the Roga Bala, the disease and this thing. And at this point, we take a call, can we manage in Ayurveda or not? Okay? If we cannot manage, we'll refer the patient out. So we don't take anybody and just say that you please come, we'll try to Ayurveda. So we look at the patient, and only then we get to the medical management principle, and after 14 pages, we come to the medical prescription. And so it's taken us so many pages of data to come to what is the root cause in this particular patient. And then come to the medical plan, and that is told in terms of the diet, lifestyle, medicine and treatment. All four come. So this from this goes to a medical record. So we've done some medical investigations, MRI scans, and a neurological consultation was done, because he had come straight from a stroke. He went to a hospital and then came directly to us. So we had to do some neurological assessment to just ascertain risk factor. That's what the doctor thought was important. Then we get into the medical management, and as you can see, comprehensive documentation end to end. I just want to say the treatment objectives, the safety guidelines, what medicines, what treatments the patient will sign off. Completely informed care. So because we are Ayurveda, we follow still the most thorough protocol-based approach. This is NABH aligned. NABH is the highest quality standard, like the JCAHO, the Joint Commission for Accreditation of Health Organizations in the US. The same quality standard, this hospital complies with that standard. Right? We're the first hospital in Ayurveda sector to get that certification. What I just want to show you here is the outcomes now. What we try to do in many cases is that for stroke, for example, we take this is the National Institute of Health stroke scale. So the outcomes that you're telling, we try as far as possible that we look at the Ayurveda parameters. We also take an international stroke scale, baseline the patient. The baselining is done, and then track the patient on this baseline across this period. Not clear?
No, well, I think the stroke scale is for acute patients.
Yeah, this is an acute case. Post-acute, this is a rehabilitation of a patient who's got the stroke. So you have patients who's discharged from the intensive care unit who's brought here and treated here at a fraction of the cost which is happening there. So the model completely is, we don't use technology. You come into a building, in fact, I was telling Jennifer, there's nothing much to show, because all you'll have is some rooms and this thing. The entire thing is the knowledge and the wisdom of our doctors and the caregivers. What to do, when to do, which medicine to give. So the capital investment is very, very low.